Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're back for another one of our virtual lunch and learns, and I'm Richard Restuccia, Vice President of Water Management Solutions for Jane, and I'm really excited about today's program because it's a little different than what we've had in the past, right? Instead of coming with some product training or some education, we're really talking about the state of the farming community, particularly in the Central Valley of California, one that's so important to everybody. So really excited about this. And then I also know our panelists know each other very well. And, I've heard Cory do some podcasts before, and I know how entertaining he can be. And I know he's picked the right people for this as well. So very, very excited about this. So what you're going to hear today or see is, a conversation between all of us, kind of talking about what's happening currently with agriculture. So let me introduce our panelists first. And first, I do want to introduce Cory Broad. Now, Cory was the 2019 Agriculturist of the Year for the Madera Farm Bureau. And I don't know, Cory oddly left that off his bio, but I actually think it's one of the greatest things on his bio. So I added that for him. But he's a key grower development manager for Jane Irrigation. He's really passionate about irrigation and water conservation. And the other thing that I really appreciate about Cory is Cory is what I call part of the modern day evangelist for water conservation and farming. You'll find Cory on Instagram, LinkedIn. He's really picked up this digital communication better than most. In fact, I'm sure all of you have seen the great things Cory is doing, and it's very exciting to see that. And he's showing some real leadership. So it's great to have Cory on here with us today, and we really appreciate that Cory put this team together. Our other panelists, the first one is Austin Hubbel. Austin's a ranch manager for Marthadale Enterprises, which is a family-owned and operated grower, packer, shipper. They farm about 1,000 acres. It's kind of interesting. He was telling me early on that it's 1,000 acres, but it's not all in the same place, which is interestingly challenging, I imagine, than just having it all in one place. They farm almonds, grapes, blueberries, and do some custom farming as well. So it'll be great to hear from Austin. And then finally, we have Nick Davis. He's a farm manager with the Wine Group, and they farm about 2,000 acres of grapes, almonds, pistachios, and walnuts. Nick's also the president of the Madera County Farm Bureau. So I know that Nick and Cory know each other well through the Farm Bureau. I know Austin goes back to like high school with Cory in the Central Valley. Just wanted to start there, Cory. This could make for some exciting chemistry here. How long have you known these guys?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it. Austin and I definitely go back several years, easily over a decade at this point, and have been in a working relationship for probably about the last 7 years. Working on different irrigation projects together across their ranches, and continues to be a great friend and a great leader and customer for us. And then Nick Davis, I've gotten the chance to know very well over the last 2 to 3 years through my role in the Farm Bureau. And Nick's been a great leader for the Madera County Farm Bureau, and has been somebody that I've looked up to from a leadership position, and has been able to help, coach me along in some of those situations and get me involved with a really important group for farming advocacy.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So, I'm looking at Nick, and we talked earlier. He is not driving. He is in the passenger seat. His wife is driving. He's got a couple kids in the back. He is living the COVID lifestyle right now very well. It's a great example for us. I don't know if that was planned or not for our virtual lunch and learn today, but thank you. I wanted to ask you first, do you see any supply chain disruptions because of COVID? People are starting to talk about food and food challenges maybe down the road. What are you seeing, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks again for having me, and Cory, thanks for bringing me along. And I apologize that I'm in a vehicle right now. It didn't work out this way, but I'm sorry, this is the way it is. Yeah, there are definitely some challenges. As far as what I do with the wine group, I farm wine grapes, so we think about supply chain management. I'm on the vineyard management side of things, so I don't know how they are sourcing supplies, but just in the wine group industry in the community, we're thinking about how difficult it is for any crop to be harvested, but consumers, right? So are people drinking more? Are they drinking less? What are they drinking? What varieties are they drinking? What location in California are they drinking, or in the world? On the almond side of things, we hear of buyers enacting force majeure in other countries, saying, "Hey, even though we bought the product, and we have a contract, we're going to walk away from it." And how does a seller in the United States have the time and resources to go visit those products and make sure they're purchased at the port? So there are definitely supply chain issues. Even if you talk about grape or harvesting berries at this time of year, which is very critical, how are people practicing social distancing in a crew where normally you work shoulder to shoulder together? So it's affecting agriculture tremendously. We're all just trying to work through it together. It's a first for everyone.
Yeah. That's great. That's great information. Very interesting. Austin, are you seeing some of the same challenges? Are you seeing the same things, or a little different?
I would agree with Nick on the supply chain side. One of the big questions, just as a first example I can think of, is N95 masks. Absolutely, our first responders and healthcare professionals, they absolutely need those things to keep themselves safe, to keep their pay safe. And from a producer standpoint, we ask ourselves is, well, we are required to provide N95 masks to our pesticide applicators when they're working. So when we come to the point where, let's say, we run out of masks, if the supply chain has not rectified itself and production hasn't come up and supplies have finished, then what do we do? And that's just the first example I can think of. Any kind of consumable product, even there's been talk amongst some of the fertilizer companies purchasing raw ingredients from overseas. Are they able to get those? Is there a delay in getting those? And what is that going to look like in the long run? And I think that we see immediately some of the supply disruptions. I don't know if we've seen all of this disruptions we're going to see.
So, okay, I think the last thing I heard there was disruptions we're going to see, and then a little bit of a cutout. Cory, I wanted to ask you, is this what you're seeing around the valley too? And then as a follow-up question to this, is anybody policing this, or is it, just on everybody's good character?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of the same things across industries, here in the Valley. I know some of the discourse nationally on our food system has generally been A, food distribution to people, and then also B, looking at some of the meat producers and some of the things they're going through with plant closures. I would say one of the good things for us here locally in the Valley is we aren't in harvest swing right now. We're just getting through planting. I know Austin should probably share a little bit of some of their crops and the harvesting that'll be coming up on blueberries soon. But for all intents and purposes, major commodities such as processing tomatoes, almonds, pistachios, et cetera, they're not really being processed at full capacity right now. So it's not really affecting those businesses directly. But to both their points, from a day-to-day operation standpoint on the farm, how can we get through some of our key activities, such as pesticide applications, and still keep our workers as safe as possible?
Yeah. Okay, good. So, Nick, back to you, as far as masks and compliance on the farm, is there anybody inspecting this right now, or is it once again, based on we're doing the right things?
I think we're in a position where the Ag Commissioner's office isn't coming down on farmers too terribly hard right now. They understand the position we're in. I haven't had an inspector show up on any of my properties just yet. We've had reports from the Ag Commissioner where the law is the law, so they can't let us not use face masks or required PPE when applying any chemicals or plant protection products. We are required to do that, but I think they're going to take care of us in a way, and there's going to be some sort of grace period. But really, I'm not so worried about that aspect of it as I am concerned about my employees and them being comfortable driving tractors, touching equipment, and just being safe in the workplace. We haven't had a COVID-19 outbreak yet. I've only heard of a few in our county, but if my priority is taking care of them so they can take care of the plants. And just like Cory said, in most of the perennial crops at the moment, well, let's say nut crops at least, we're not in harvest yet, so we have a few months yet before we really need to worry about that. But on the consumer side, that kind of worries us and what that's going to do to harvest. But my concern is for employees and taking care of them and making sure they're relaxed, because they are a little worried.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that you're concerned about your workers, which I knew you would be, and I'm sure they appreciate that. So, I want to change it up just a little bit. We're still talking about COVID, but are you changing anything? And Austin, I'll start with you on this. Are you guys changing anything that you're doing marketing wise to make your products different, more desirable, to appeal to a different marketplace? Anything along those lines?
So ultimately, we're grower, packer, shipper, so we don't directly do marketing, but we work with a couple of different marketers to help sell our products. And I think what they are doing is they tremendous resource over the last couple months to our harvest that'll begin in a few weeks, helping to put together policies and procedures to minimize contact of commonly touched surfaces, whether it be hand washing stations, water dispensers, things like that, and really to help bolster their food safety program so that they can go to their customers, the retailers, and say, this is a good product, this is a wholesome product, we have these practices in place, and we are working to ensure that we uphold this long-standing record of good food safety that we've had.
Yeah, good, great. Thank you for that info. Cory, what about you? What are you seeing out there? Anybody making any dramatic changes or making a huge splash or impact on this?
Yeah, I mean, there really hasn't been a ton there. I've been reading a lot of government reports and a lot of reports from the different commodity organizations that I work around. And, the processing tomato industry in California, they plan on fulfilling all their contracts, planting tomatoes as expected. And so that's a good sign, because that means that, that product's going to be there in the long term for consumers when demand does come back online. The almond acreage continues to increase. Got several customers that are literally planting trees today. Pistachio industry seems to be doing well. I spoke with a pistachio representative a week ago, and all the contact they've had with different processors says that the demand has been strong. Their biggest challenge right now is not having containers to move the product out to foreign markets, which is a big consumer of our nut products. And so the demand is still there despite all the challenges going on in the world. The big issue is just the infrastructure of moving that product and getting it to market. But continued demand is a good sign.
Yeah. So Cory, where are those containers then that they can't get?
Sitting somewhere in some port. And the challenge is when you look at freight logistics, freight back is really important. So if you're a freight carrier and you are bringing products, for instance, say we're bringing in products from China that might be, electronics or something like that to the US. And now we have to find something to fill that container back up and get it back across. And that container is not going to go anywhere until that gets filled. So the big issue is just getting them from these foreign countries to our shores.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks for that explanation. I appreciate that. So Austin, we've been talking about COVID for a little bit here, and that's really a big challenge for everybody now. So besides COVID, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing Central Valley agriculture in the next 5 years?
I think the biggest challenge I see facing the Valley ag industry in the next 5 to 10 years is legislation. And I know a very broad topic, but I kind of want to say that I feel that from a producer grower standpoint, every time we enact legislation, we adapt to it, we implement it, we are compliant with it. And once we get kind of comfortable, everything's working well, I feel like something else comes down the pipe and says, oh, well, we don't like that process anymore. We want to do something different. I think it tends to start to create a little bit of confusion and frustration in the sense, well, we thought we were doing it right. Now perhaps you're saying we're not quite doing it right. Or we get the procedure down, we're doing great, and they want to change the procedure. And I know that's a broad topic, but I think it creates a little bit of confusion in the operations, in that we want to do a good job of maintaining these records and following these procedures, but if the procedures are constantly changing, it makes it more challenging for us to do so.
Yeah, interesting. So would you include Sigma in this government regulation that's a challenge for you guys right now, or?
I would include Sigma. I would include the groundwater nitrogen management and all the other kind of interrelated water regulation as part of that.
Yeah, okay. And all right, great. So typically, how are you guys, are you getting training on these changes? How has that happened?
We have been getting training on that. We're a part of a groundwater coalition, as well as working with our local irrigation districts. And we want to have sustainable aquifers as much as the state of California wants us to have sustainable aquifers, because water is really our lifeblood. It's really hard to do anything without water. And we would do a good job of being stewards of the land. I think we also kind of need a little bit of help in a lot of ways. Whether that's in helping to establish ground charge facilities, improving conveyance facilities and storage facilities, building more storage facilities. The state of California is very lucky, and it has a tremendous water resource that really can benefit everyone, from the city to the land. And I think that there is some middle ground where we work together. It's going to take a lot of work from the water users and the legislatures to make that system work like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, thank you. Nick, are you seeing similar challenges with Sigma and government regulations, or do you see other challenges that are a little bit more difficult for you now?
I was muted there for a minute. Yeah, I echo everything Austin said. Sigma is going to be the issue of our generation, my generation, Cory's generation, and how we navigate that is going to be extremely difficult. It's been difficult. I mean, I'm sure Austin and Cory both understand, and those other listening, is, for farmers that have property that they farm in a wide area known as an area that's not provided surface water, or in a water district to some degree, there's going to be a real challenge there to deliver water to those farmers. And there's talk about fallowing ground or retiring ground. And if you think about that actually happening, and you can think about how much money will be lost on a tax basis to our counties and cities just by the sheer number of property tax. And I don't know the exact number, but I think it's somewhere around 50 cents per tax dollar goes to our school systems and cities. So you can just think of this catastrophic effect if we start fallowing ground. So Sigma is absolutely one, the number, the issue, but also, like Austin said, there's numerous other issues, and just regulation in general is just coming down our throat. And we don't do a good job as farmers telling our story. You know, consumers love agriculture. They love farmers, but they hate agriculture. And that concept blows my mind because farmers are agriculture. So we're constantly trying to beat down regulation. We do the best we can, but it's difficult.
Yeah, so that's it for you too. Sigma is going to be the big issue.
Well, there's Sigma, but there's also the labor constraints, of course, and we're going down to an eight-hour work day, a 40-hour work week. Wages going to $15 an hour. We're trying to strategize how to navigate that, implement more technology, and just try to figure out how we can keep the costs down and still continue to deliver a favorable product at a competing price with other countries.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, Cory, what about you? What do you see as the big challenge in the next 5 to 10 years for growers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're both right on top of it. I mean, these are the discourses that we have all the time in my position with all the growers I speak with, and those two are top button issues. And but we did kind of touch on technology there from Nick's point of view, and I think there are a lot of good things out there in the technology space that are really going to help growers navigate that, limit the amount of labor required, and then also be able to use water more efficiently and in a timely manner on some of these properties that might be impacted by this legislation. And on a final note for that, I think the biggest thing is too, Nick talks about, outreach and telling our story and people loving farmers. We also, to solve the labor challenge, we need another generation of young people to get involved in agriculture. You don't have to be a farmer. I'm not a farmer. I've never been a farmer, but I'm an agriculturalist and I'm an ag professional, and our company has plenty of them, and there are many of them in the Valley, and that's what makes it tick and work so well. So we need to make sure to get those students out of universities and other trade programs to say, hey, you can be in agriculture and you can have a good career and you can help provide the most safe, affordable food supply in the world.
Yeah, that's really a great point, Cory, because really we're going to need everybody to pitch in here, right? We've got some big challenges coming up in the next few years, and a lot more food to produce. So it's going to take a lot of good minds, that's for sure. So good. So well, let's kind of open up that labor conversation right now. Austin, I'm assuming labor's still tight, hard to find. Are you guys doing anything different around labor, and is that still a correct assumption?
We have over the past few years taken steps to try and mechanize as much as possible, but at the end of the day, even a machine requires people to run it, people to maintain it, people to clean and service it. Going forward, we see more mechanization or automation all the time, but unfortunately there are still a few crops or number of crops that are not conducive to machine harvesting, and those are challenges that are gonna in the industry we're gonna work on for the future to come. There are people working to develop new varieties of certain commodities that are conducive to being machine harvested. People who are implementing changes in their operations to grow these crops in different manners. Stone fruit trees are being trained differently so they can be not necessarily machine harvested, but harvested with mechanical aids. I think that the availability of labor is a challenge, the cost of labor is a challenge, and at the end of the day, you're never going to be able to run a farming operation without some labor, but I think we want to make wise use of our labor resources to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, interesting. That's good. So Nick, I'm wondering, do you spend a bigger percentage of your time looking for better labor resources, or looking at technology to maybe as a substitution to human labor? Did you have a feeling on that?
Well, it's sort of comprehensive, and we kind of attack it from all angles. We look for labor crews or year-round labor that are guys that know how to do multiple tasks. You can train them to do drive a tractor or run a backhoe, And I think training is really important with the labor that you have right now because labor is so scarce. I've had some labor that's willing to go to my neighbor for additional 50 cents an hour, and it's really competitive. And
Right.
the example is a truck driver wants to go to a neighbor to make 50 cents more an hour, and he's been with me for 2 years. And it's just, that's an example of they're just in such high demand that they're willing to do that. But I think training the labor we have now in our workplace is very critical. But on the technology side, we are absolutely looking into all other types of technology in our leader operation.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because we do that 50 cents an hour after
We
you.
already make it.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I lost you for just a second, but I was just saying, yeah, that extra 50 cents, you've got your training, there's a ramp up time period, and then the person's gone and you're out.
Yeah. But it's what we're dealing with, and find good employees, find crews. Luckily, we have great partners with labor contract companies, farm labor contractors, and I would advise farmers who don't have a relationship to look into that as an option. A lot of small family farmers just have a few employees, but building that relationship with farm labor contractors that have really good safety programs and roll that out in your farm operation is helpful too.
Yeah. Well, great ideas there. Yeah, thank you. Cory, are you seeing anybody doing anything out of the box on labor as you're making your way around the Central Valley?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously being focused in the irrigation space, that's always an important topic for me, and in looking at automation. And I think, the waves of that come through. There are different generations of technology. And obviously our company, here at Jane, we offer a lot of different solutions in that space, but automating a task like irrigation, I think is an easy step for many growers. There's a little bit of capital investment up front, but I think, with the right approach and the right implementation, there's no reason why the ROI on that can't be very favorable for a grower. And every operation is different in its implementation, but being able to do more with less people using the technology is the biggest thing. There are a lot of people in my age bracket that are in positions like Austin's and in Nick's that are managing more acres than their predecessors used to do, because technology allows us to do exactly what we're doing today, communicate and share ideas very quickly. And our generation is being able to capitalize on that on the farm.
Yeah, no, that's great, Cory. So are you seeing, a general percentage of technology acceptance out there? Do you have an idea for us?
It's really hard to say, because when you look at ag, there's so many different facets that it can be approached in. If you look at just mechanization, I mean, that's one area, but then there's mechanization for pruning, there's mechanization for planting, harvesting, etc. I will say that agriculture is one of the most advanced industries in the world. If you look at how far agriculture has come, look at it every 50 years and the changes that have happened. I would say that growers are adopting technology every day. It seems slow because farming is a long process. You don't just build a new factory and turn on a line and you're producing something new. It takes a lot of time to get those crops through and those ideas. But every grower I know is implementing some type of technology into their operation every day.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. And there's a lot of risk there too, right? And I'm very sympathetic to that side of it, right? We're running a business here, and we try to manage that risk best we can, just like they are. So I think that does make it a little bit more difficult. And so I guess for the technology people out there, taking away the risk factor is going to be key. So as we start to get into some of this technology, and Cory, I'm glad you brought up the water side of it. Austin, I'm wondering, how, especially with different acreage around different parts of the county, how do you do things like your irrigation scheduling, and how do you map this out, and how do you go through that process, if you don't mind, with your different areas?
Absolutely. We are beginning to implement some automation on our ranches. one of our challenges is because we farm many parcels that are relatively small, we try and spread that capital investment over a number of years, just simply because if we have many small ranches, that means we have a high number of pumps and irrigation systems. And to manage those appropriately, we're trying to roll out automation over the next several years, because historically what we've done is utilizing evapotranspiration, calculating our own water usage, reconciling that with more old school traditional type of soil moisture sensors, and doing a pretty good job of managing it in that regard. But to help maximize our labor efficiencies, maximize our water efficiencies, I see us in 10 years being fully where we check soil moistures from a mobile device or a laptop. We create irrigation schedules much in the same way. We're reading water meters in the same way, and we can really have a very high degree of precision in the manner in which we irrigate.
That's pretty sophisticated. Thank you for explaining that. And I don't think you just woke up one day and decided you were going to do this. That had to be a process. How long did that take before you got up to speed on the automation the way you have it today?
I would say that about 6 or 7 years ago, I started taking a hard look into it at some of the very first people who were installing automated irrigation systems at that time. Because obviously the technology scene and the irrigation scene is very different today than it was 5 or 10 years ago in those categories. Looking at what some of the original folks had done and said, well, no one provides this perhaps at this time. We have to make it work ourselves. How do we do that? And I think that, some of the kind of founders of the irrigation automation industry really, did a great job of putting some of this technology together. And taking a look at what they had done and seeing where, a multi-thousand acre operation pops up on a computer screen, different commodities, different blocks, different methods of irrigation, and they can sit at their computer and chat and make changes to this. They can say, we want more water here, less water there. We're seeing this response here. We want to fertilize this way on these blocks. And really to have all that at your fingertips is invaluable. We have not completed automating everything yet, but I anticipate that over the next few years we will. At which point we really have a high degree of ability to manage these fields, because it's not uncommon that we'll have a field on one side of a street that has a different soil type than the field directly across the street from it, and those two get managed differently.
Well, thank you. It's really cool to see the evolution of that, and see that there's a plan in place for the future as well. So, Nick, how about you guys? What are you doing for irrigation scheduling?
So I come up with a comprehensive approach on an Excel spreadsheet document. So I have an equation that I don't know how others do it, but I use an Excel document. The equation is based off of reference ET that I pull from nearby SEMA stations. I plug in the efficiency or the distribution uniformity of an irrigation system, the application rate of that irrigation system. A lot of our irrigation systems are different. They have different application rates, of course. So I use this information and it kicks me out the number of hours per week per irrigation set. And I probably have maybe 40 different vineyard blocks that I do this with. And I utilize historical average evapotranspiration usually, but I've just started rolling out forecasted evapotranspiration so I can understand what next week is going to bring me. We all know next week here in the Central Valley is going to be really hot, much more than it is this week. So I can even do a better job, be more efficient and more accurate at irrigating my vines for next week. So it's just a formula, but I sometimes personally get bogged down with technology on the irrigation arena. Sometimes I've utilized a system called Hubbel. It's a nice system. It kind of measures area and prevailing ET captures from preventing winds over a vineyard operation, or it could be almonds or pistachios, but it's just me. But I think I just find myself sitting down trying to understand the system and the software more than what I can do on my Excel spreadsheet, and then give that to my irrigators that we can then roll out the plan for the weeks. But I'm still learning. There's a learning curve to using any technology. I want to use it more, and I'm just learning how I can apply it to my systems.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's pretty impressive that you took the time to do the Excel spreadsheet, though, and figure all that information out. How long have you been using that, and how long did it take you to get it to the point where it is today?
Well, the thing is, I always tweak it. Every year, there's always something I add or remove from it to help me improve. It took me probably just a couple years, but I have it down now to where I can share that with most anybody. They can understand it on the Excel spreadsheet. But we also utilize pressure bombs in mice. It's a very expensive tool to use. It's around maybe $4,000 to purchase a pressure bomb that measures leaf water potential in grapevines or really in any crop. And I utilize that to kind of ground truth on my irrigation, how well I'm irrigating the vines and what the plant hydration or really the leaf water potential is. So I don't use it every week, but I use it every other week to kind of see how the vines are doing.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So, Cory, you must see a lot of different people using different ways to manage water in the Central Valley. You have any that are standing out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to both their points, it's evolving, and there's, I'd say, no really wrong way to do it. The biggest thing is limiting the bog down that Nick talked about with customers. And I think that's one of the challenges I've seen with growers adapting certain things is it's a lot to, take in all at once and really understand and learn. One of the things that I think we've done really well as a company is work really hard to make a software that can be very agronomic based. If you really want to get into the details and really drive decisions with hard, fine numbers, you can do that. Or if you need something that's just more of a roadmap on how much do I need to irrigate, it's looking out for you and can give you those numbers pretty quickly. It can give it to you in a few different methods and ways. And I think that's one of the things that I'm excited about with our technology platform and what we're doing. But the Excel spreadsheet is not uncommon. Again, just going forward, that labor time and that labor availability to do that, Nick's time is going to be even more and more precious going forward, Austin's, mine. And so what we're going to have to do is find systems that can do a lot of these things for us and can give us numbers without us even having to go in and utilize a computer for that, right? It's just, maybe it's an email, maybe it's a text message. Hey, you need to irrigate this many hours this week. Do you want to start on that? And you can hit a button, and with all this pump automation and other things, it says, usually you run 18 hours a week. That's what you need to run now. And I'm going to run 2 9-hour sets. And you hit a button. I think that's where it goes. I think that's where the technology ends up at a certain point.
Yeah, I sure do think so too. And then when I see presentations, right, or like Jeff was on Wednesday with satellite imaging, and I think about these things and I start to think, man, sometimes I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose trying to learn all the information. And I said, well, who's going to help me with this? And I think about people like Santino and Bill and Jeff and David Lindsay and Connor, who have been doing this for years, and they're there to support people. And then I say, okay, I really can get this one-on-one support. I can figure this out then. I can do it with some help. So I think that's great, Cory. So Austin, are you using any other technology in your operation that is tied to production?
We are. We've got a couple different tools that we use. Some are pretty simple and basic. Some are fairly complex. Over the last year or two, we've actually installed GPS on a lot of our pickup trucks, equipment, things like that, for a couple of reasons. The first being, it's easy to see where a piece of equipment's at. If I know I need to go meet someone when they get done with a field, I can pull out my phone, look at it and say, oh, he's only halfway through the field. I don't have to go over there just yet. Or to track production, say, he should be a little farther through the field than that. Is something going on? Is there a problem? And of course, you know, it's great to always have GPS on something in the event of a theft, let's say. Additionally, in our blueberry harvesting operation, we have an electronic system that we use on a handheld cell phone-like device that tracks all of our production, tracks the pounds per picker, it gives us traceability from the field, ultimately to the finished package. And all that data we can access in real time. As we are harvesting, I can log in and see how many pounds an hour we're doing, how many pickers we have working, what's their average productivity. And that helps guide us, not just with tracking worker productivity and tracking costs, but also helps guide our harvesting decisions. If we knew a field was at a certain stage of maturity and put a crew in, maybe the efficiencies aren't real good. Maybe on the next time we need to let that field get a little more mature. And that gives us a real-time tool to help guide those decisions of when we're going to harvest certain commodities even.
Yeah, well, that's great to see. And I mean, what a labor savings for you, right? Helps guide your day
Absolutely.
a lot better. Yeah. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Nick, how about you? What technology are you using, you know, for the production side or the harvest side that you find really helpful right now?
So we're just rolling out this new system called Ag Otter. If anybody's heard of it, it's agriculture otter, like an otter in the river, Ag Otter. It's a system that we've rolled out onto our spraying equipment. Measure the flow on either side of the sprayer, and you can set targets above or below the amount of gallons you want to apply per acre. So if a recommendation accounts for 50 gallons per acre or 100 gallons per acre, you can see if the equipment is doing 90 gallons or 110 gallons, or it's also GPS equipped. The tractor driver has an iPad in the cab with them or on hand, so we can find out, are they skipping rows, or do we have plugged spray nozzles that we need to clean out more frequently? And it gives the operator a tool. It's a tool for the operator to say, hey, I can improve this, or I don't have any problems, we're good to go. So that kind of helps the operator, but also helps me understand how well we're applying our material.
That's great. So I love all this technology talk. I love to see what we're doing or what you're doing to help be more productive and increase yields using technology. I know I was thinking about, you know, the offer we have now for everybody on the call today. We have a free trial offer for our AgriLogic satellite imaging, and want to be sure everybody knows you get a follow-up email today with a recording of today's presentation, and that satellite imaging will be a part of that free trial. So, you know, anyone who has any interest or has an inkling that I'm kind of curious, we really want you know, to encourage you to use it, because I think it'll be eye-opening. Well, Cory, these guys have been great. I'm wondering if you have some final thoughts. You know, getting this information from Nick and Austin, it's been so valuable. You know, this is, and I apologize to our Fresno State professor, but you know, it's having this real time. It's important to have the classroom learning, but to have this from the guys that are doing it right now every day, it's so valuable. So, and any thoughts or follow up you want to make here?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've covered a lot today, and it's a dynamic situation in agriculture. A few final thoughts for me. My last bit on technology, I think one of the biggest things that's going to grow here is going to be imaging. We are offering that imaging trial right now. We've partnered with a company that's been doing imaging for several years. The images keep getting better as far as what the satellites are able to put out, and the quality of the data is getting better with that. And that is going to be one of those things that's really going to help us track things from a precision standpoint and also save labor. I've had a firsthand experience of looking at a customer's field via a satellite image and could easily see a quote unquote problem area. It didn't tell me what the problem was, but it told me where it was. And on a 100-acre block, I was very easily able to drive to that area, walk the field, and within 5 minutes, I could see that there was bicarbonate and algae buildup at the end of the lines in the drippers, and easily was able to work with the grower to say, hey, this is an opportunity to improve production right here just by making some minor changes in your practices. And to me, that's an invaluable tool to have in the box. We can't be everywhere all the time. And there are things that satellites can see that we can't see from a plant change. And it's pretty exciting to get some of that insight. And the last thing is, I appreciate these guys joining us. Agriculture has been put into the spotlight because of everything that's going on with the pandemic, and agriculture is deemed an essential industry. Irrigation is essential to agriculture, so maybe we're twice as essential, but nonetheless, it's, we want to thank our producers. We want to thank everybody who's working out in the field, and guys like Austin and Nick that are, doing a great job to provide, safe, clean, quality food at an affordable price to all of our shelves, and providing an element of national security in a time that it's a little bit challenging.
Yeah, that's so true, Cory. I'm glad you brought that up as well. So, Nick, any final thoughts for everybody? We're all in this together. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks again, and kind of what Cory mentioned earlier was, in agriculture, there's not one size fits all, one technology that fits all. There's a wide range of acceptable practices for every crop farmed in our state of California, in the Central Valley. So I would encourage everybody on the line, or I know this is international, but at least those in the United States, to really collaborate and partner with resources like the Ag Commissioner or research facilities, your suppliers like Jane Irrigation, people like Cory. They have wonderful resources.
Okay, seems like
farmers, and kind of lean into them a little bit, because so lean into people like to keep it up.
Yeah, great, Nick. Thank you so much. And Austin, how about you? Any final thoughts for everybody?
I think Nick kind of hit the nail on the head. The agriculture industry is a beautiful, diverse industry made up of just a ton of great people who have really just taken the bull by the horns at when they're faced with a challenge, finding solutions that work for their operations and maybe things that can be implemented elsewhere in the industry. And there's nothing else I'd rather do as a career in my life. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be on this today. It's been a pleasure, and hope we were able to provide all the folks out there listening with some good information and some insights into what people like Nick and I and Cory and you do kind of on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, thank you. Your passion for the industry really comes through with what you had to say today. So I appreciate that, Austin, and Nick and Cory. Same for you guys. Thanks so much for being here today. It was a wealth of knowledge. We really appreciate it. Like I said, we'll have this recorded. We'll send the recording out to everybody, so you can share that with others that weren't able to join us today. But again, thanks very much, everybody, and have a good rest of the day and a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.